All right, time for some viewer questions. So I do read your comments. Most or all of the comments I read. Sometimes I answer them in text. Sometimes I answer them on videos like this. So just know I do appreciate your comments. I appreciate the engagement, and it helps the algorithm, helps keep the channel getting distributed by YouTube, making sure people watch. It's good. I like that. So I like this. I like to reach other people who may be out there seeking suffering, but don't really have a way in, or don't have a resonant pathway, pathless path and all that, and find this channel randomly. That's the beauty of YouTube, is it does kind of your marketing for you. It does show videos to new people, but engagement helps, writing questions, engaging through watching videos, watching the whole video, all that stuff really helps. So just be aware of that. But I do answer these questions. I preferentially answer questions from channel members and higher that donate a little bit of money. But you don't have to do that. I still will answer your questions, and I still make free videos every single day. So there's that. First question today is from Isabel. It says, many traditions talk of a first and second awakening of sorts. The first awakening being a recognition of truth, or our true self. Then sets in the feeling of, I had it once and then I lost it. Is this second awakening just the moment where this belief is dropped? So I don't necessarily say there's a first and second awakening. I don't use that phraseology typically. I usually say there's a first awakening, and then there are some refinements that occur later in realization, and also that kind of comes hand in hand with doing shadow work. That's more the basic way I would say it. But that's not a bad map that you're using. It's those pointers kind of make sense, and they do tend to come in that order. There is a first awakening. You could say, is it realizing your true self? Sure. However, the funny thing about that is a lot of people, their first awakening more correlates with the sense of seeing that they can't find a self. It seems completely paradoxical, but they both represent a shift in identity, from a fractionated, thought-based idea and memory and fact-based sense of self to something fundamental to that, much more fundamental than that. I would actually say the first shift is a shift into the direct experience of unbound consciousness as the primary experience, primary to any possible thought. So any possible way you think the world is, even what we consider objects of the world, all of that is all thought. And when that's clear, that comes along with a distinct shift in experience, a distinct shift in identity, in experience of self and identity. So that is the first shift. The second thing that this person describes is, I had it and I lost it. I wouldn't say I had it once and I lost it. Usually what people perceive is the insight is there, they know it's there, but the feeling of living it moment to moment seems to wax and wane a lot. There'll be times when you just feel super contracted and a lot of intensity and resistance and reactivity and headiness and thought, even getting sucked into thoughts here and there, but never fully believing them anymore. So there's something that changes permanently, so to speak, in the relative life. But it is a kind of like seesaw thing that happens for a while. And then I wouldn't say that the liberation or the deeper insights of realization are completely encapsulated in this statement that you stop believing that, right? You stop believing that I had it and I lost it. That's a belief, sure, that I had it and I lost it. And losing that one belief is fine. It's good, but that's a belief, right? It's more like really starting to integrate into what was realized in the first awakening and dissolving any remaining perceptual filters, and then working through shadow material that is keeping that polarity inside consciousness going, or causing it to restructure itself over and over. That's deeper realization and more like what leads to liberation. Liberation meaning liberation from your suffering, liberation from suffering. So I think that's a reasonable map if that helps you, but understand that mapping this doesn't help. That's not the point, really. It's like an afterthought. So don't worry about maps. You don't need maps. Just look at what's happening right now really, really closely. All right. Plus, when you say many traditions, like traditions talk about things in all different ways, really. I mean, there's so much variety and variation there. So it's a little hard for me to say which tradition you're referring to or what exact map you're talking about, but it's not a bad map you laid out there. Okay, this is from Sven. Thanks, Angelo. Really glad I found you. Going through your book a second time now. Awesome. I do tell people a couple things. One is, if you love the videos and watching all that stuff, great. I love the engagement. Appreciate it. It helps get this stuff out to other people, as I said at the beginning. But the book is different. I've had many people tell me the book hits much more directly than the videos. Part of it is the way we learn, maybe, or the way we receive information, or the way we receive transmission, or whatever it is. Written language versus spoken and hearing that language. I don't know. But also, that's part of it probably. But a big part of it to me is when I speak on videos, I know there's transmission. I speak very intuitively this way. I'm not planning what I'm saying or anything like that. But when I write, I do the same thing, but then I can actually refine the language. I go through it many times often, and really refine the language until it's really potent, until it's saying exactly and precisely what I want to say. And I did that for 130,000 words in this book. So if you haven't read the book and you watch my videos and you're serious about awakening, check out the book for sure. Second thing I want to say is if you've read the book and you got something out of it, great. Especially if it was early on though, try reading the book again later, especially after a shift. It's going to hit differently. It's going to hit in a different way. You're going to feel things you didn't feel the first time. You're going to see nuances because the book is actually very, very dense with specifics. I was very careful the way I wrote it. So just be aware of that it can be valuable to go through it again for sure. I've had people tell me they've gone through it several times. This one's, thank you, Sven. This one's from Lisa. Great video, Angelo. That's the video. Your immediate direct experience is all that matters. I have an unrelated question. Do you have a perspective on prayer? I haven't given much thought to prayer for years, but someone I love is going through a really hard time, and the only thing I can do for him is pray. I don't even know how to pray since the way I prayed as a kid doesn't make any sense to me at all anymore. I certainly don't know if it does any good, but I'm trying. Yeah, I read years ago, there's a book by Vivekananda. I can't remember what the name of the book was, but I remember him saying in there, he was talking about prayer, and he said, the prayer that we use, he might have been talking directly about Christianity and even said it that way, but I don't know for sure. But I think what he said was when people pray to God, mostly what they do is it's like the prayer of a beggar. Like we're just begging God for things we want, right? In one way or another. Now, of course, there are much more selfish versions of that and more selfless versions. Your version is a more selfless version. And yet there is some sense of like, why I think things should go this way. I want things to go this way for this person. I'm not saying that's bad at all. You obviously care deeply about this person. And if that feels relevant, go for it. I think it's awesome. That's one kind of prayer. That's in my feeling, that's the right way to use traditional prayer. There's another kind of prayer. Adyashanti has talked about it. I've talked about it. You could call it a prayer. You could call it an intention. You could call it a surrendered position. And it goes something like talking to whatever force feels like the real force to you, whether it's the force of the universe, whether it's a bodhisattva, whether it's God, whether it's yourself with a capital S or whatever, or whether you don't even know who you're talking to, but you just need to say, I really just want truth. I want to live truth. Whatever that costs me, I want to live my true nature, whatever that costs me. Even if it costs me my self-image, how I understand myself, if it costs me physically, if it costs me financially, if it costs me relationships, whatever it costs me, even if I don't like that, even if I don't want to let go of those things, I'm willing to ask for truth, even if it disrupts my life, even if it puts obstacles in my way, or not necessarily puts obstacles, even if it puts circumstances in my path that I would never choose and actually don't want in the moment, but I need to go through those to realize truth. That's what I pray for. That's a different kind of prayer. That's the prayer along the lines of what we're talking about here when we talk about awakening and realization. That's the kind of prayer that is so fucking potent that I say, I don't know if you could say that if you didn't mean it, but if you don't mean that, you do not want to say that. You're asking for the sword of Manjushri when you say a prayer like that. So, yeah, great question. And I hope your friend does well. I hope things go well for your friend. This one's from Nikki. Allowing for more expanding fear as I hear this. Clearing away more grasping for foundation and numbing safety. That's in a video clip I have here. Yeah, I love that. And when you talk about expanding fear, and fear, the feeling of fear, the physiologic feeling of fear is rather expansive, is it not? It's expansive. It can be intense. It's energetic. It's transformation. Physiologic fear is the experience of transformation. It's the portal to the archetypal energy of the magician, the trickster. Yeah. So be aware that fear in and of itself is okay. It's more than okay. It's going to be part of this process. It's going to come and go, and you're going to experience it here and there. But in and of itself, you don't need to make any message out of it. And this person is so surrendered to her process. Obviously, it's great. Allowing for more expanding fear as I hear this. Clearing away more grasping for foundation. Those are hand in hand, right? Grasping for foundation. Turns out you don't need foundation, right? But that doesn't help you when you're going through this. You have to actually feel those fingers like letting go and sometimes being pried away from what you're grasping. It happens. It's tricky sometimes when you don't even know you're grasping. But if you're willing to just let go and let this process take you, do you see the theme that's building in these questions? This one's from Infinite Nothing. Just says, love it. In reference to the video, you will be astonished. All right. Where am I at here? This one's from Swara. It's helpful to start this series from the beginning. This is about the series Existential Wounds. She's talking about the deprivation wound. This is for channel members, by the way. This is the Patron Circle members have access to my courses, and this is one of them. I found this series halfway through already and super helpful to hear that there are many like me who have had some intense religious indoctrination interwoven into the parenting environment growing up. Yeah, we do talk about religious trauma in there as well, but there are a lot of different ways these wounds crystallize in our lives and affect our childhoods. So I have it broken down into 8, and I think it's pretty exhaustive. There's deprivation, deprecation's wounding based on shame-based parenting, basically, but wounding based on criticism, correction, seeing the child as something that needs to be shaped through shame and so forth. Deprivation is more about not having emotional support, physical support, physical contact, things like that. Having a kind of emotional vacuum as your background growing up. Stultification, there's several. But anyway, that's the series we're talking about there. This one is from Jean. I forgot who said it, but I love the quote, "The world is full of rings. Straighten all your hooks." That's awesome. The world is full of rings. Straighten all your hooks. And it's funny because it's true. I really like, there's a lot of wisdom in that, because what happens when we don't have our hook straightened? Or maybe we've straightened it somewhat, but not all the way, or we've straightened some of our hooks and not other ones, is the belief we get from this, the meta belief that forms is something like, it's impossible not to get entangled in those rings in the world. Rings just meaning places a hook can catch, right? So sticky situations with people, enmeshment, all the things, human suffering, drama, all of it, that we can conclude that you just can't live a life without getting ensnared in a lot of this stuff. But it turns out you can, and the only way you know that is to straighten the hook. When the hook is straight enough, you realize, oh, I don't have to make the world such that there are no rings anymore. The rings are there. I wouldn't even say the rings can be there because it's not permission. It's not on your permission. They're just there. They don't have to go anywhere. But when you're not a hook, the rings start looking really different. You can see the problematic nature of those rings for themselves and those around them who believe in them and have hooks. But you also start seeing them very, very differently when you're not getting hooked into them. So that's a pretty fucking awesome quote, actually. I don't know who said that. Who said it? Does anyone know? This one's from Gina. Thanks for this video, Angelo. I'm finally not just noticing, but actually dropping my need to change the world. I'm starting to deal with my repressed anger. That's it right there. It's a pattern I see in people, not the majority of people in this space for sure, but some. But I see it here and there. People who are really about activism and things like that. Not that there's anything wrong with activism, but when that gets mixed in with the spiritual seeking and stuff, it can be very confusing. People who are really mad about the world and the way it is, or one part of the world and the way it is. Not that there aren't major problems in the world and that it's terrible and that people are treated horribly, but that becomes a justification for not doing your own work. And it's about anger. It's all about anger. It's externally projected anger. What are you really mad about? What are you really angry about? Yeah, people are being hurt out there. Who hurt you? That's what this person's talking about. There's maturity here. I'll give you an extreme example, a couple extreme examples, and that is some of the people who are considered some of the most altruistic figures in history had some major fucking shadow. Two, I will give you an example of. One is Mother Teresa, and the other one is Gandhi. And the first time I heard somebody criticize Mother Teresa, I thought they were just being an asshole. I thought there was some weird psychological thing of why would you even do that? But then the more I learned about her and some of the things she did, the more I realized like, oh, their criticism is very well founded. If you're interested in this, there's something called the Mother Teresa tapes or something like that. It's a podcast somebody did, and it was very well done. They went and met nuns who were in her order and interviewed them. And it was brutal. Like what they went through was brutal. It was essentially a kind of psychological, certainly manipulation, and borderline torture at times with the psychology of it. Pretty bad. Very dysfunctional what these women went through, these poor nuns. But more than that, what it looked like she was doing, or what it seems like she was doing, or what she's credited for doing, and what she was actually doing, were not necessarily the same thing. The way her end-of-life patients were managed in some of these clinics and some of these spaces looked more like trying to glorify suffering as a kind of penance or a kind of cleansing for these dying patients than actual medical care. Meaning, you might think, well, these are the poorest people in the world, and she's out there treating them, so they didn't have many resources. And sometimes that's true, but there were times when they actually did have resources. People donated tons of money, and it didn't necessarily get directed to these. To improving the treatment for these people. Many people were denied pain medicine at the end of life, which is considered medical malpractice nowadays, to be denied pain medicine when you're in significant pain at the end of life. But she purposely denied that. And she did not deny it for herself when she was dying, by the way. So there are serious criticisms if you really want to look into it. So I'm not here to shoot anybody's heroes down. I'm just here to point out that some of the most ambitiously altruistic, on the surface level work that has been done in this world has had some significant dark sides to it. Gandhi's another, maybe more egregious. He certainly was racist against black people. Africans were inferior to Indians, and he wrote about this stuff in South Africa. But he was also pretty damn abusive to his own wife, even publicly. Public humiliation, like pretty nasty stuff. So he had a pretty significant dark side, and even more directly to the work he was doing, similar to Mother Teresa. What he was doing and what it looked like on the surface wasn't deeply congruent with his own ideology. For instance, he was in support of the caste system in India. He just was not in support of the untouchables being untouchable, but the rest of the caste system he was actually in support of. And there were a lot of contemporary critics of him for these reasons. So both Mother Teresa and Gandhi certainly did some good, but they had some very dark sides to them. And this is, to me, again, I'm not saying this to blow up anybody's heroes. I'm saying it to turn it inward and use that as a measure to look at ourselves and say, where am I fooling myself by thinking I'm a good person? By thinking I'm the one that's aware of that horrible thing that's happening in the world, and I can shout about it on Facebook and talk about it all the time and how bad it is and how smart I am because I know it, and how sort of morally superior I am for seeing that. A lot of that's true. Like the things you're saying are true, and that people are being harmed is all true. But the way you're doing it is not, well, first of all, probably not helping anybody. It may be polarizing sides, but more importantly, it's a distraction. That's what I really want to say here, is that it can be a distraction from doing your own work, your own seeing that you're the one that's angry and that you have trauma. You may well have trauma, and you have the right to address that. So give yourself permission to do that. That's what I want to say. And this person, obviously, Gina, has seen that, seen through that, worked through it, and all of it. And I love that. Absolutely love it. And you're coming to the retreat in North Carolina, it looks like. So we'll see you there. It's going to be awesome. This one's from one more YouTuber. They're just saying yes to the statement, why would I do anything else? Yeah. My video called Self-Inquiry Part 2, the process itself. You get to this point with inquiry, with starting to engage truth, where it's like everything that used to be so important kind of fades into the background a little bit. Like, yeah, you still take care of business and do the things you need to do and your responsibilities, but your central orientation is to truth, into inquiry, into really getting out of the way of yourself from at the level of identity, and the level of thought, and really surrendering to truth and seeing what's what, turning that attention inward, taking that backward step, inquiring with true surrender. That's what that's about, right? And I have always felt like, since I figured it out at 24, like figured out that it's possible, not because I made it up, but because others showed me through a book. Ever since then, my stance has been, why would I do anything else? So this is from BJ Runson. Yes, often I notice this. The I that notices the thought that is observing is still a thought. I am stuck here for now, mostly time to time. Well, I would say this. When you say, I notice that the I that notices the thought that is observing is still a thought, awesome. Meaning the subject, the thinking of like, I'm the one noticing thoughts. That's also a thought, right? Then the funny thing is, then you said, the next thing you say is, I'm stuck here. That's also a thought, though. Do you see how that works? It's like turtles all the way down. Don't stop at any turtle. Don't grasp any thought. Realize, like, are you stuck here? Is that any more true or not true, or any less a thought than the I that's observing the thoughts or the thoughts that are observed? It's just thought. And when you finally see through this and you don't grab the next thought that gives you an opportunity to identify with it, it's dominoes falling. Those thoughts will fall like dominoes. Yeah, you may be far closer than you realize. Yeah. Oh, and it also says, the trier is more thought than ego. I accept my poor condition. Where is there, after all, to go? So again, poor condition. I don't think you're in a poor condition. I don't even know what that means. If you mean like confusion, psychological suffering, feeling of contraction, all that. If we're talking about awakening, if anything, that's the opposite of a poor condition. Most people wake up through despair. Or at least that's really the entry point to when we really start to do authentic inquiry, authentic investigation, authentic surrender. Comes through that lens of despair and just, I give up. I can't go any farther the way I've been trying to go with my thoughts. Yeah. So I think you're in a good place. Just watch those thoughts. Just let go of the next one and let go of the next one. And if you listen to me say this and you go, yeah, but that's not about me, let go of that one. And if you say, oh, I agree with this, let go of that one. And if you say, no, he doesn't get what I'm saying, let go of that one too. You got to let go of those thoughts, right? You're doing great. Just don't get stuck with the next one. Because the mind will do that. It'll just keep offering you things. And be like, you want this one? No, I know that's a thought. Oh, how about this one? Oh, that's great. And then you identify with it. Don't do it. Yeah. This one's from Beth. Letting reality just be what it is. What could be more relaxing way to live? Breath in, breath out, or breathe in, breathe out. What else is there? I agree. And even letting reality be what it is, shit, you don't even have to let it. You never had a choice. It is what it is. The key is like, don't solidify and become something that can avoid reality through believing it's separate, through believing it's in time, through believing it has agency. That's why there's all these perceptual filters that we address, that it's not just a either or, that that there is some tenacity to the ego structure, right? But ultimately, when all is said and done, it is exactly what Beth said. Letting reality be as it is, or seeing, it's a moot point. There is only what is. And what is doesn't have parts. And what is isn't trying to do anything. It's instantaneously, effortlessly doing everything. It is everything. Yeah. Beautiful. Cool. This is from Neil Scoofus. Thank you. Fetter 4 and 5 dropping was probably the most obviously enjoyable, like big freedom moment of this process by far. My life before that and my life now is so significantly different. It's crazy. Like, got way simpler. That's from a video called Can You Respond to the Challenges Without Reactivity? I want to say about this, because I've worked with people through fetters and I've worked with people through not using fetters at all, more the latter for sure. But occasionally someone seems like they want to use the fetter approach and I'll do it. I will say 4 and 5 is tricky because most people either bog down or quit before they finish breaking those fetters. And then end up, it doesn't mean that they stop the whole process, but they end up just using different processes and different approaches. And it just does not jive with some people. They just either, it's not that they don't get it, but it's just, I think they get frustrated and they stop instead of just digging in precisely and keeping at it. The fetter work, 4 and 5, as this person definitely knows, it takes a kind of tenacity and consistency. Whereas other ways of approaching all of this can be much more fluid and formless and intuitive. And all that's great too. That works as well. But so it's definitely not for everyone to do it this specific format. But the people who do and they stay with 4 and 5 and they really work with reactivity until it really breaks, they see exactly what this person said. It's a huge shift and a huge relief. Yeah. Makes everything else so much easier and much more enjoyable. So yeah. Okay. I think that's it for now. Again, appreciate your comments, appreciate your engagement, and wish you all fruition.